All right, good evening, everyone. I call this May 13th, 2025 hybrid administrative meeting of the Board of Commissioners to order. Vice Chair Barbeau is excused this evening and all other commissioners are present in person. We will have a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Benson.
Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam County Manager. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda?
Yes, thank you for asking. 9A, Economic Development, PRB Ordinance West Mesa Ridge has been deferred to the May 27th meeting. 11B, Economic Development Housing Division Budget and Economic Development Department Steering Committee and Community Dialogue Budget be heard under the adoption of resolutions as item 10B. Staff is requesting suspension of the rules to allow for this item to be presented and considered for final adoption this evening. A vote is required for the above changes to the agenda and suspension of the rules.
Very good. Before we take motions on those, commissioners, are there any changes to the agenda? Okay, so I would suggest we take that in two motions. If we could get a rules suspension on, sorry, I'm trying to find the item here again. Item 10B, the county manager has requested a rule suspension. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
And a second from Commissioner Frank Baca. Any discussion on the rule suspension? This will require a vote of three in the affirmative for this one. All right, seeing none. All those in favor of the rule suspension? Yes.
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 And none opposed, so that passes on a 4-0 vote. So that item will be heard for final adoption this evening. And then the next item will be the deferral of the PRB. Do we have a motion for deferral?
I move deferral.
Second. Any discussion on the deferral? All those in favor? Yes?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, and that passes on a 4-0 vote. So that concludes. Julianne, were you?
Apologies, Mr. Chair. For item recognizing retired Judge Jewell, if we could also defer that. I understand that he wasn't able to be present tonight, and so if we can reschedule that for next meeting.
Very good, good catch. And we also don't have a sponsor, Vice Chair Barboa, with us. So I would make a motion for deferral of item 5A to a future meeting. Second from Commissioner Barbara Baca. Any discussion? All those wishing to vote in the affirmative? Yes?
Aye.
And none opposed. That passes on a 4-0 motion. So we have an agenda for the evening. All right, thank you. And so next up, we've got item 4, proclamations, item 4A, National Public Works Week, and we have Deputy County Manager Elias Archuleta to present with many of his great staff with him.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Next week, May 21st, or May 18th through the 21st is National Public Works Week. And we often celebrate this here in Bernalillo County with a couple of events, one of which is a, pardon the pun, roadshow that we do out here, and we'll have it next Wednesday from 10 to 2, and we bring some of our equipment to demonstrate things we do, but we also allow anybody who's interested to come and work with it, play with it. We have some challenging games that we have with a couple of pieces of equipment to see how good your skills are. And so we encourage you to come out with that. And then one of the other things that we do for our staff is myself and our directors and our division support staff host a barbecue for the staff on Thursday. And we actually, have all of us cooking for our staff that's out there as a thank you for what they do for us every day. So with that, I would like to read the proclamation.
Please go ahead.
National Public Works Week is May 18th through May 21st, 2025. And this year's theme is People, Purpose, and Presence. Public Works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of Bernalillo County. These infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are equipment operators, tradesmen, mechanics, inspectors, lab personnel, engineers, managers, custodians, administrators, and employees at all levels of government who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. It is in the public's interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children of Bernalillo County to gain knowledge of and to maintain an ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. The year 2025 marks the 65th Annual National Public Works Week sponsored by the American Public Works Association. And we pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life. And with that, we have our directors, which a lot of you are familiar with, but like we have our public works staff that comes and supports. We have a couple of them here. We have some of them probably in the back. And one of the things that we like to note out of this is a lot of times public works is only seen as, the guys you see out in the field, or you think of the engineers and architects. But as we can see, public works, especially as we have it here in Bernalillo County, it includes our custodians, it includes our administrators. We can't do anything without them. So that's one of the things embracing this year is we want to make sure everybody that helps us do our job on a day-to-day basis is recognized. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy County Manager. And let's give a round of applause. I wanted to just reiterate that last point that you made. I was just looking over right before the meeting, the position listing of all our departments, but yours in particular really popped up. Just the diversity of individuals working there, a lot of blue collar folks, plumbers, electricians, foremen, blue collar folks all throughout the county in all different departments, Parks and Rec, also high on that list, but definitely don't want to leave any of those folks out, as well as our architects and the planners and the engineers. The motor grader operators and heavy equipment operators, solid waste folks, just people that really make the county run, live in all our departments, but in particular yours. So thank you for leading this item and bringing this forward.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Oh, yeah, yep, we're forgetting the order of things here. Thank you guys.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, one more round of applause for Public Works. All right, our next item is public comment. Well, each person will have 2 minutes. You'll be alerted to your remaining time. When your name is called, please make your way to the podium if you're speaking in person. Before making your statements, please state your name for the record. To maintain order and decorum and in the spirit of professionalism and respect for everyone present, speakers must adhere to the 2-minute time limit. If the conduct of the presenter violates the rules, they may be subject to removal. Javier, could you please call the names?
Thank you, Chair. We have 9 speakers today. When I call your name, please line up next to the podium. First speaker will be Janet Sayers. followed by Dawa Shashali, followed by Bernice Estrada.
Hey, get myself organized here with the right glasses and everything on. So, Chairman Olivas, members of the commission, Madam County Manager, staff, my name is Janet Sayers, and last year this commission appointed me to serve on the Bernalillo County Albuquerque Library Advisory Board, and I am taking that very seriously. I've been doing a lot of homework, a lot of information gathering, especially in the last 6 months. But I'm here tonight to speak in support of an amendment, a change to the operating budget for 2026 that could increase the amount of support given by Bernalillo County through a memorandum of understanding shared with the city of Albuquerque. So we do have 19 branches of which, of our unified city-county system, of which 3 of those branches are external to the city limits. Oh, and I should say, I have lived in Commissioner Olivas's district, now going on almost 40 years. Yes, it's a long time. But the county and the city have been partners through this memorandum of understanding for several decades, and it accomplishes so much for our community. And we are hoping that this amendment will really, 23 seconds, that this amendment will support specifically the area of technology. And that is very important because we have 400 public computers spread out over these 19 branches that are essential to so many people that cannot afford home computers, internets, that kind of system. And this technology makes sure that all of those can be used safely with security. It also manages our library card holder system, over 300,000 people, and it manages several million materials that we have to know where those are at all times. Thank you very much. Thank you for having a few minutes more than 2.
Thank you, Ms. Sayers. Appreciate your service.
Next speaker will be Dawa Shashlichi, followed by Bernice Estrada, followed by Julia Clark.
Good afternoon. I'm Julia Clark. Members of the commission, I'm a member of the Joint City-County Library Advisory Board, as well as the board of the Albuquerque Public Library Foundation. Members of the Library Advisory Board join me in thanking you for considering adding $250,000 to the amount the county provides for library services. This addition will benefit all residents of Bernalillo County. I'd like to take this opportunity to give you a little bit of good news about our libraries. We have 333,000 plus individual card holders using our libraries. In fiscal year 24, 1,636,303 individuals walked into our library to take advantage of the resources and programs that were there for them to enjoy. Online visits to the library's website are robust, over 6 million. A total of 4,376,391 items were checked out from the library. That includes digital downloads as well as physical materials. There were 8,777 programs, 4,368 of which were for youth and teens. Over 148,000 attended. Did you know that our libraries check out ukuleles, cake pans, museum passes, birding kits, and seeds? They don't have to bring back the seeds. On May 31st, the summer reading program begins. Not only does this program provide activities for children and families, it's designed to decrease the summer learning loss. Last year, more than 14,000 participated. Thank you so much for your support of the libraries and for letting us speak.
Next speaker, Bianca Encinias, followed by Anami Das, followed by Dr. Geraldo Cianello.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Bianca Encinias, and I'm a multi-generational Mexicana indigenous woman from northeastern New Mexico, born and raised in Albuquerque. I'm a brick and mortar business owner in downtown Albuquerque. I own El Chante Casa Cultura. We've been open for 15 years. We're an arts and cultural district. In terms of my qualifications, just so you understand where I'm coming from, I have my master's degree with distinction from the School of Architecture and Planning. Specifically writing my thesis on economic development, particularly looking at women in color in New Mexico. I'm a state certified economic development planner. And I also, in my professional time, I am the executive director in an MRA district, and I brought in millions of dollars for public infrastructure redevelopment, as well as private funding for private redevelopment. I'm here today because I have some growing concerns around a metropolitan redevelopment plan that was just issued now in May of 2025 by the city of Albuquerque, along with the advisory committee representatives from Bernalillo County staff, and also growing concerns of increasing property taxes in the downtown district. In the past 3 years, our property taxes have increased 40%. I think we're getting confused with some of the vacant buildings downtown. I think that's a stark increase historically for people of color, Native Indigenous people who are from here, to see our commercial property taxes increasing 40% by the current county assessor, approved by Bernalillo County commissioners. Where my concerns also lie is within the MRA plan that was just issued now in May of 2025. It calls for a bid. Now, a bid does increase property taxes. A bid did exist in the city of Albuquerque downtown area from 2000 to 2015. When you look at the tax rolls, you can see the increases and the decreases when that bid started. So I'm here today to say that we're against any bid, and we hope that we're concerned that the county is showing support by having their names on it. We believe that these sorts of policies disproportionately impact people of color and Native Indigenous people from New Mexico. Thank you. And I'd be more than happy to meet with some of you and present some of the presentations that we're giving to neighborhood associations across the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Encinas.
Next speaker, Anami Das, followed by Dr. Geraldo Cianello, followed by Loretta Naranjo Lopez.
Mr. Cianello, I think you're next.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Chair and County Commissioners and staff. I'm an alternative health doctor and minister, naturalized American citizen and taxpayer. First, I'd like to honor all the moms in this chamber and belated Happy Mother's Day to you in 2025. And may God bless you all, moms. And this is the part 2 of One Nation Under God that I spoke on last time. And in fact, at the first ever meeting of Congress in 1774, when it was suggested that Congress open with prayer, some delegates predicted that the act would be divisive. But John Adams reported exactly the opposite, noting that, and I quote, "It has had an excellent effect upon everybody here," end quote. Several Supreme Court justices still believe that such acts are unifying, noting the founders of our republic knew that nothing, absolutely nothing, is so inclined to foster among religious believers of various faiths of tolerance, no, an affection for one another than voluntarily joining in prayer together to God, whom they all worship and seek. Yet the public acknowledgement of God was more than just a pleasant practice in early America. It actually formed the basis of our government philosophy, a philosophy set forth in 84 simple words in the Declaration of Independence. We hold this truth to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, the governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter and to or to abolish it, and to institute new government. Did you know there's a five immutable principle constitute the heart and soul of American government? And I will touch on that in next time. And those governments, pretty much last time I spoke in 84 principles of word, the Declaration, Independence. So I'll touch on it next time. All right. God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. Cianello.
Loretta Naranjo Lopez.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Loretta Naranjo Lopez, President of the Santa Barbara Martineztown Neighborhood Association, and I'm here to talk about the Downtown 2025 ABQ redevelopment plan. The Santa Barbara Martineztown Neighborhood Association would like the Commission to be aware that the Neighborhood Association was not informed about the recent change to include a portion of the Martineztown Santa Barbara MRA boundary in the downtown. The Neighborhood Association was never approached to discuss changing the Martineztown Santa Barbara MRA boundary to include 101 Lomas Boulevard and 229 Broadway Northeast in the downtown boundaries. The association wants the Martineztown Santa Barbara MRA boundary to stay and the gross receipt tax from these properties to benefit our neighborhood. The question I ask is, why would our representatives want to take away economic benefits to one of the oldest neighborhoods in Albuquerque and one of the oldest MRAs? The community of Martineztown Santa Barbara understands that our government has continued to perpetuate racial inequities against our neighborhood, and the association asks that the Commission not support the 2025 downtown plan, which includes 101 Lomas North Boulevard and 229 Broadway Northeast. Martineztown Santa Barbara is an adjacent neighborhood to downtown and wants to keep it that way. The Martineztown Santa Barbara MRA exists, and we would like the boundaries to remain. More importantly, the neighborhood associations wants our continued visions for our MRA, which includes 101 Lomas Northeast and 229 Broadway Northeast. We don't need anyone to envision for us. Who does the Downtown 2025 ABQ redevelopment plan benefit? As we understand, the Downtown 2025 plan does not benefit a low-income minority community as Martineztown. We want to stop the gentrification, and I thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Lopez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This concludes our public comment.
Okay. Let's see, so we're going to go on to our consent agenda. Madam Clerk, would you please provide resolution numbers for items 7E, 7F, and 7H?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Item 7E is FR 2025-42. 7F is FR 2025-43. And 7H is FR 2025-44.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. This consent agenda has been published and made available to the public, and resolutions have been introduced at previous meetings. Therefore, I move to approve the consent agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second from Commissioner Barbara Baca. Any discussion on consent? Seeing none, all those wishing to vote in the affirmative? Yes?
Yes.
And that passes on a 4-0 vote. The consent agenda is adopted, and just wanted to recognize that we did appoint a couple of individuals this evening to various boards and commissions, and thank them for their willingness to serve on those volunteer boards. All right, item number 10 is adoption of resolutions. Madam Clerk, could you please provide resolution numbers for item 10A, 1, 2, 3, and 4?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Item 10A1 is FR 2025-45. 10A2 is FR 2025-46. 10A3 is FR 2025-47. And 10A4 is AR 2025-48.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. And so this is going to be our consideration of final adoption for our fiscal year 2026 budget approval. And we have County Manager Cindy Chavez and Deputy County Manager Shirley Reagan to present.
Thank you very much. Good evening, all, and I'm really delighted that we are bringing forward the adoption of the resolution for our budget process and each of the budget actions. I'm going to start by just making some very broad comments about how we got to where we are today relative to the budget, and then I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Reagan to give a more detailed affirmation of each of the actions we're asking you to take today. I want to remind you that months and months ago, and she'll tell you the actual dates, we began meeting with all of you and the public to talk through what we were going to be able to do with the county's budget. And as you know, budget documents are value documents, and so it was really important to us that we were being able to do a few things at one time. One, to make sure that we were informing you of what all the good work that the county is doing. Two, where we could get better at that work. And three, how were we managing the resources that the public has entrusted to us and ultimately to you. I want to also just acknowledge the commission spent hours in meetings, and I want to say a really very sincere thank you. I know the staff deeply appreciated the attention and time each and every one of you took to get to know more about the budget, to ask probative questions, to get us thinking about how to bring you an improved document. The second is I wanted to thank the public. I know that we've had folks in and out learning about the budget, asking good questions, and again, paying close attention, which only makes us refine our work better. And finally, I really wanted to acknowledge the staff, and I wanted to acknowledge the staff for a couple of reasons. One, this was a very tough budget. We came in with a flat budget. We told the staff no additions of folks, that we were going to prioritize making sure that we were investing our resources rigorously and doing our very best not to expand until we really learned what it is that we were doing right and well, and also recognizing that at a time when there's such flux, that making sure that we were dotting every I and crossing all of our T's was going to be very important in terms of our performance. So to that end, the staff not only had to deal with a very fluid public environment both at a federal and a state level, but they also had a new county manager. You all have met her. And I was asking as many questions as you, and so I wanted to say to Shirley and her team, just really, really well done. Let me just say a little bit about why we were in a flat budget. Again, just as a reminder and also for the public, there were a number of reasons that we were in the situation that we're in. One is that we were growing at a much slower pace year over year than we had in many, many years. Second is we have a very significant overtime challenge, particularly with public safety, and we exceeded last year's budget as we were frankly trying to address the needs of the community, and public safety is a number one need of the community, and we recognize that. But better understanding how we can control those overtime costs in the future is going to be a big priority for me, as I know it is for you. In addition to that, we had a new contract with our partners at UNMH to provide services at MDC. That contract ran over significantly in this fiscal year, and it pushed us into expanding the needs of that contract in the next year, which had a very significant impact. Third, you all know that we're working in a very fluid environment relative to insurance. And so taking a hard look at how we could manage our costs and our risks was another area that continues to be on the forefront of how we are proceeding, but also thinking a lot about what are the changes that we need to make as an institution and what kinds of investments might we need to make in that in the future. I do want to add that we've had an impact from the federal government, not from an ongoing service provision, except in a couple of key areas, including school lunches, but with significant one-time investments that we've made where we have outlaid capital and not yet received from our invoices received money. And so that's going to leave us a little bit more nervous about what if that money won't be paid back, and over what period of time can we expect it? Nobody really knows the answer to that right now. And then I want to add just a bigger dynamic, and I want to use one example relative to the federal government. As you know, the county has its own housing authority, and one of the challenges that we're seeing is that with the housing authority, the federal government is making recommendations to cut both the number of vouchers that are available to our community, but the time that people can be in those vouchers, using those vouchers. And as you all know, under your leadership and as part of this budget, we are recommending expansion of non-general fund activities relative to how we support our community in this crisis, which is really, what are we going to do if we see even more people becoming homeless in our community? So all of those things made us come to you and say, we want to have a flat budget. We made some exceptions to that, and one of them is that we did set aside $8.2 million for increases for our staff. And there were a number of reasons that we did that. One, you all made a significant investment in doing a class and comp study that really got our staff closer to where they needed to be in terms of the market, which is incredibly important. We wanted to make sure that we did not go back, and that we weren't in a situation where a future commission was given a choice of 10% or 13% or more because we'd fallen so far behind. So it was really important, and the staff did a brilliant job really of trying to nip and tuck around the edges, so we had resources that we could invest in this area. I do just want to acknowledge that two areas are going to be impacting our staff this year. One is that we have a 5.7 increase in the contributions our staff will make for their health benefits. I was reminded by one of you how robust our health benefits are, and that is true. We really, I think, have done, and the county, prior to me getting here, a very good job of investing in the health and welfare of our employees, and the health benefits are a reflection of that, certainly. In addition to that, there will be a 0.5 increase for para this summer. And so with rising inflation and, again, some unsteady economic times, making sure that our employees feel appreciated and that nobody's paycheck gets smaller next year is really important to me as the leader of this organization in terms of how we're going to proceed. In addition to that, we need to address where we have high vacancy rates, because one is these are really critical services. I'll just give you one that you are all paying a lot of attention to, and that is our youth detention facility. Right now, we have a vacancy rate that is we're almost 40% below where we need to be, and that is such a critical resource. We want to make sure that we're really taking a good look at those areas where we have high vacancy rates and where we have high need, to make sure we're investing in those. And finally, we need to be looking at efficiencies. As I spoke earlier about how are we going to be rigorous in addressing overtime, part of that is making sure we're hiring people in the first place, so we're not having to substitute overtime. So we're going to dig in and continue to work on that. I just wanted to wrap up again by saying that we're open for questions, and we would and as always are really honored to respond to your questions. You are frankly the highest reflection of our citizenry. You are asking on behalf of all of them, and we understand that. I do just want to turn to Ms. Reagan for a moment so she can just walk through the resolutions that that we would like your support on this evening.
Good evening, Chair Olivas and Commissioners. My name is Shirley Reagan, Deputy County Manager for Finance, and I'm here tonight to present the fiscal year 2026 budget for approval and adoption. First, I'd like to thank the budget staff, the county manager, my fellow DCMs, Warden Smith, the elected officials, department directors, and all of the county staff who participated in the development of the FY26 budget. I'd also like to thank you, the Board of County Commissioners, for your support and collaboration during this process. The FY26 budget was introduced at the April 22nd, 2025 Board of County Commissioners administrative meeting. Prior to that, we held the following meetings and workshops during the FY26 budget preparation process. We had discussions with elected officials and departments throughout the process. We held budget retreats with the county manager and deputy county managers on January the 29th and March 6th of this year. We had budget workshops with the commissioners on February 17th and again on March 18th. And then we concluded with the FY26 budget public hearing on April the 10th of 2025. The budget proposal before you includes a general fund budget of $453,306,000 and a non-general fund budget of $306,015,305,000. We have 7 motions on this agenda item for your action. If you would like, I can read each one individually. Otherwise, I stand for any questions.
Thank you very much, Deputy County Manager Reagan, County Manager Chavez. Commissioners, any questions or would entertain a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move approval, and I would really like to thank again County Manager and Ms. Reagan and the staff for all of the work that you have done these last months, listening and telling us when to be careful, because this is a very difficult budget season, but I've always said, you know, it's sort of the art of the possible, what we know are our priorities in our community and what we can get done, and I really feel that we've been at the table working hard with staff to do that. So I move approval.
Second. All right, so we have a motion and a second on the floor. Commissioners, any questions or discussion on our little over $1 billion budget?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Bach.
I do have an amendment. Is this the appropriate time? I would like to make an amendment. We heard from our leaders of our Library Foundation and our Library Advisory Board, and I think I've said every time I've had the opportunity how important our library system is to all of the city and Bernalillo County. The 19 branches serve all of Bernalillo County. It's a real success that it is a regional library system, and it was brought to my attention that the technology budget, which, as was stated, has 400 free computers. It serves people who do not have access to that, and it's not funded adequately. And what happens is they use salary savings to fund the technology, which means there are no librarians in their seats because we're, robbing Peter to pay Paul. And that's just not okay. We need to have our branches open to the public, and we can't cut hours or those kinds of things that comes with the problem of lack of staffing. So my amendment, I would like to read for the record, is amendment to item 10A FY26 budget approval. And you each have gotten a copy, I hope. I move that we amend FR number 1, establishing the fiscal year 2026 general fund budget to reallocate an additional $250,000 for unified library operations. These one-time funds shall be taken from the county manager's office operating budget, which shall be reduced by $250,000. The funding is for operational dollars for technical services and technical support for the Albuquerque-Bernalillo County Library System. I would also like to direct the county manager to review the existing MOU with the Unified Library System on sustainability and also return with solutions for recurring support. And again, I'd like to thank the manager for being willing to work on this and being committed, as do I, to work forward on how we adequately fund our library system.
Second the amendment. Discussions, questions on the amendment before us, Commissioners? I just wanted to say, I support this. I think this is a good move. In our last GEO bond cycle, we doubled the amount of funding that we allocated for library materials. Important distinction, right? Because you can stock the shelves with books, but if you don't have librarians there to help with that process, or you don't have people to clean the restrooms or you don't have computers that actually work, we can buy the computers, but if we can't maintain them, right, you see the issue there. So I think this is important, and we do need to move in this direction to provide more funding to our libraries. For me, one of the things I think about these spaces, we often, and I know there's a lot that goes into libraries, right? There's so many services that we heard tonight, but one of the really, really basic ones that I think of is the fact that we have a very limited amount of public restrooms in our community. And libraries offer public restrooms that are pretty well maintained usually, and offer folks, you might be unhoused or you might just need to go. You have the option there, and there's not a whole lot of public restrooms left anymore in our community beyond some of our big box stores and things like that. So I just wanted to point it out, that one other social service that I think we don't normally associate with the libraries, but I very much support this, and I very much support the end of this that talks about the need to really look at our existing MOU and think about how we maintain this additional support and not just provide it one time, which is necessary in the current year. Commissioner Benson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree. I support this, and I think about all the kiddos who are going to the libraries after school, and especially focusing on operational budget for technology. I think it's excellent, especially for kids after school or during the summer. I spent many days after school in the library. My only concern, or I guess frustration, is that it's the same dollar amount as was requested by my colleague, Commissioner Baca, for his Route 66 Community Center that did not have the equal support from the commission, which I think should have. But that aside, I absolutely support this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Benson. Any other discussion? All right, seeing none, let's close the floor. We'll go to a vote. All those in the affirmative signal? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Is that a yes, Commissioner?
Yes.
Okay, that passes on a 4-0 vote, so that is Amendment 1. This is a little bit out of order, but I know there's, I understand that there is some folks in the room that may not have had an opportunity to speak that thought they signed up. Given the gravity of this, $1 billion we're talking about spending, if there's anyone that didn't get a chance to speak, if the commission will allow, if there is anyone that wants to say a few words, I'll entertain that if there's not an objection. Okay. Yeah, go ahead and let you get in line there.
They have a typical 2 minutes.
Yes, we'll hold you to the same standards as general public comment, 2 minutes. And so we'll let the four of you speak.
Mr. Chair, County Commissioners, my name is Theodore Iguhai, and I'm Vice President of Albuquerque Area Firefighters. I rise today in support of budget measures that would provide Bernalillo County Fire and Rescue members with, at a minimum, pay parity with Albuquerque Fire and Rescue. I also want to thank every commissioner who has met with us and worked to address this disparity. Many departments in Bernalillo County, especially in public safety, are paid more than their city counterparts. And I might add, they deserve every single penny and more. However, Bernalillo County Fire and Rescue is not paid more than its counterparts at the city of Albuquerque. In fact, we aren't even paid the same, we are paid less. Furthermore, we work with fewer personnel. That is to say, we respond to the same calls and perform the same duties with fewer firefighters, making the job more difficult, all the while being paid less. We humbly ask that your final budget appropriations this year reflect a commitment to give Bernalillo County Fire and Rescue the compensation we have long sought. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, County Commissioners, I'd like to echo what Vice President Iguhai said. These conversations have been ongoing. I've been a firefighter for 21 years. Many of these conversations predate your tenure on this commission. And day one of all of your tenures, I think you have had this conversation with myself and Vice President Iguhai, because this is very important to firefighters in Bernalillo County, that they are seen, treated, and respected as equals to their counterparts who do the same thing. So we urge your support for this ongoing and continuing mission of ours. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Angelica Carrillo, President of Local 1536 with Vice President Will Martinez, representing the Youth Service Center and the staff that I work beside every day. There was a number of staff who wish they could attend today but have signed this petition in support of solidarity for the Juvenile Detention Center. It comes as no surprise that juvenile crime has increased not just in New Mexico but across the nation while we're faced with the complex issue of our staffing levels declining. We are met with danger every day when clocking in and face it with courage, strength, and dedication. What we do is not easy. It is physically, mentally, and emotionally demanding that requires sacrifices from our personal life. I have a binder with me showing how our population has increased within the past 2.5 years I've been employed, as well as news reports from when our staff were injured. Besides all of the negativity I just named off, we still love what we do. What we do is life-changing for the residents we work with as well as the employees who work there. With a hard job like this, as well as the cost of living in today's economy, we should not be forgotten about in this fiscal year. It was mentioned that public safety was one of the causes for budgeting this year, which goes into conjunction with our over 40% vacant rate. We do not need to hire more staff. We do need to hire more staff, but we also need to care for the ones that we already have, the ones that want to grow within the facility, instead of having to start every year with new staff. We need to take care of the ones that are already here, not paid the same for the more work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate y'all being here and the work you do at the YDC. Thank you for being here. Thank you, commissioners, for entertaining that little deviation from our usual order there. So I have a couple of comments, and then I also have an amendment that I'd like to make. But I want to point out, or sort of, it's kind of a question about the term flat budget. To me, a flat budget means that the revenue coming in this year is effectively the same as last year. Is that the case? Or my understanding is that our revenues did increase, but perhaps not as fast as the demand for the need for.
If I may just jump in, and then I'll have Shirley give the technical point. The reason I've been using the term flat is that I really wanted to be clear with the organization that we were not going to grow in terms of staffing, because the traditional process you all have had, and again, I'm coming into it midway, has been to ask everybody for every single thing that they wanted, with the idea that we were going to actually grow the organization. And I wanted to make sure what people understood is that we were staying, living within our means, and we were not going to be growing incrementally or otherwise this budget year. And so really it was a term of art from my perspective based on the challenges we were having with the budget. I do just want to add, and I'll let Shirley talk more about the situation that we're in, which is we absolutely have slower growth in revenue than we've had year over year. And you all did something I think was extremely thoughtful, and I just want to acknowledge my predecessor, Julie Morris-Baca, for doing this, which was to do the market study that bravely looked at the gaps we had in terms of how we were paying people. That coupled, so we made those significant increases, growth slowed, and then we had significant increases in overtime in our contract with UNMH and in a couple of other areas that put us in a situation where we were having to make very difficult choices. I do want to just reemphasize that one of those choices on our part was to continue the work that you'd already begun. I mean, on my part, my recommended budget to you, which was not to go back in terms of our employees. That was absolutely something we did not want to do and do not want to do. There may be a fancier, more technical, let me just see if Shirley has something else she wants to add to that. But it really was a term of art that I've been using.
Thank you.
Chair Olivas, commissioners. So the budget revenues grew about 3%. So that's kind of a relatively flat. It's just kind of what they're saying across industry. We're not seeing the 5% and 6% growth. And then we had items that we had to consider, that the passing of the constitutional amendments and all those things pulled back on the revenue. So trying to take the things that we needed to have in consideration, we normally go to departments, like she said, and we get all of the information. So we said the priority is trying to stabilize things and not take on a lot of new things, but just really prioritize. So this year, we didn't take on a lot of new things. The request list was voluminous and huge, more than we could even accommodate. So we asked everybody to prioritize those needs. So that's what the relatively flat is. It's not that it's exactly the same as last year, it's just the normal growth. Property taxes have an automatic built-in growth rate of 3%. So those are the kind of things that we're talking about.
I really appreciate the explanation from both of y'all, and I think that makes a lot of sense. And, you know, for the public, for all of us, for everyone, just, you know, I think what you said about the implementation of the salary study that we did last year, growth in the contract at MDC, which we know may have been, you know, undervalued for a while, with the new contractor on board, and all these other factors, I think it's just very important to highlight that basically the demands on the slightly increased revenue are far greater than what it could support. Yes, DCM Reagan.
And what I might want to add too is that just like everybody else has experienced cost increases, so are we as a county. So when we go out to contractors, when we go out to buy services, those things have increased as well. So we have to take those into consideration as well. So just like the average consumer, we are also, as a county, experiencing the same types of price increases.
Thank you. Well, I really do support continuing to implement that salary study. I think we all knew last year when we did that, we knew that it was a multi-year process. And so, you know, we are following through with that on both sides of the dais here, management and commission, to follow through with implementing that and continuing a lot of the other strategic initiatives that we have prioritized up here in collaboration with our management team. So I don't have a better word for flat. It just confuses me a little bit when I hear that. So I understand what you're saying, and I don't know how to say it any better. So I think it's fine. I had one question also on the grants that you talked about, federal grant reimbursements, which is very concerning if we're not being reimbursed for funds that were, you know, promised to our community. What's the typical time to get reimbursed on? I mean, I realize it depends probably on the grant, but if you can say the typical grant, what's the typical time that it takes to get reimbursed, say, before January 21st, 2025? And currently, what are we seeing, if any reimbursements at all?
Yeah, so I'm going to let Shirley, if you have a different answer, just chime in. But I'm going to make an observation. When we were in DC, we went, a number of us, as part of the National Association of Counties, and Chair Baca, Commissioner Baca was with us. When we met with our representatives, both our senators and our members of Congress, they alerted us to the fact that they were getting feedback from all over the state that there was difficulty in getting reimbursements in a number of departments. In fact, so much so that they alerted us that as we're putting in our request for reimbursement, to alert them, because they would go, depending on the department, and actually chase down money. So some departments have been more responsive than others, but I'll let Shirley, if she has a different answer than that, because to be honest with you, the federal government's never been speedy. So it's not like, you know, but non-responsive has been the problem now, or less responsive.
Understood. DC Marie?
Chair Olivas, I think it ranges anywhere from 30 to 90 days. You have a certain amount of time that you, if it's a reimbursable grant, you have to submit your paperwork, and then they review it, and then go through their process of issuing a check. So I've seen it anywhere between 30 to 90 days. If it's a grant that they give you on the front end, you still have to turn in the information, but you have that grant money. I will use ARPA as an example. When they gave us the notice that they were gonna give us ARPA money, it was like in March. And we actually received the first part of that at the end of May. So kind of, It's how they do it. And it does vary by agency. And like she said, we even saw recently with the U.S. Department of Treasury where they said, we can't give you support on working through if you have any system issues on ARPA or emergency rental because we are reducing staff.
All right. Thank you, Elon Musk. So, yeah, it's really unfortunate. I mean, it's really unfortunate for our community, for real lives that this affects. And, it filters down to the local level here in our county. And so that's really unfortunate, really concerning that we're not able to get support and maybe not able to get the overall reimbursements. So I know that you all will keep us updated on that, but I just.
And we'll continue to work with our, Senator Heinrich's office was particularly helpful in helping us think strategically. And we have a couple of people on our team who are stocking departments now, so legally.
And we're trying to get our reimbursements turned in as quickly as we can.
Right.
So we're staying on departments and everybody's really aware. There's a heightened alertness around this whole situation.
Very good, very good. Last thing before my amendment, I just wanted to kind of make a comment that, we tried some new things with the budget process. I appreciate everyone's indulgence and collaboration and cooperation, working with that, working through that. I appreciate also that the county manager's office solicited feedback from us. I'm working on mine, so I will send that in. But I thought that it was an improvement. I still have some ideas for maybe what we can do going forward. But I really do think that was an improvement in the process and helped with just having a better understanding of what's going on in the different departments and just what people do, what their priorities are, what they're struggling with. I thought it was very helpful for me personally, and hopefully for others on the commission and probably others, other departments, right, getting to see what was going on. So I hope we can continue to build on that. And generally, in the last time I sort of talked about budget, the guidance that I suggested was that in the face of the economic headwinds we're seeing and, things like these reimbursable grants, luckily in this budget, we are not having to make a lot of really tough decisions, right? We're not talking about layoffs. We're not talking about furloughs or salary reductions or anything of those kind of draconian measures. But I think that this is a warning to us as the commission and the management team, that we really need to make sure that we are looking to optimize our organization and, really align our staffing and our management and everything we do with the strategic priorities of the commission and the management team. Because I don't think that we can maintain a mindset of just add. We have to be willing to look at what we don't need anymore, or what we can shift away. Not in the draconian, crazy Doge sense that we've seen that has just been, across the board sledgehammer type of thing. But I just want to reiterate that I think this is a warning to us that going forward, we really have to be very thoughtful about when we add a new position or we, add funding for something, that we really think about what else is in the organization that maybe we don't need, or that we need to think about restructuring or shifting. And so I just making that statement that I think we've got to be very sensitive to that. And we did get a position listing yesterday, I think it was, or the day before, and I really appreciated seeing that, and just wanted to remark that I hope in the future, because salaries are our largest expense by far, that we can always get a position listing with the budget, because, we're approving those positions without actually knowing what they are. And I realize at one point in time, they were approved by some commission at some point. But having that, just understanding, like I was saying for Public Works, the different positions within those departments is very helpful, just to have an understanding of what we're approving. And so I appreciate that. All right. With that being said, I am going to make an amendment. And I think the amendment really does give context to itself, so I'll save my comments for later. I'd like to make the following amendment to Budget Motion 1 and add 1A to read as follows. Directing the county manager to work jointly with IAFF Local 244 to design, implement, and assess a market study to identify and address disparities related to salary and benefits among like agencies and prioritize implementation of this study in future budget cycles. 1B, directing the county manager to restructure the current resources set aside for salaries and benefits to include an additional $1.2 million allocated to the IAFF Local 244 collective bargaining unit positions, subject to negotiation. And item 1C, directing the county manager to return to the Bernalillo County Commission with recommendations to improve the current collective bargaining process no later than September 30th, 2025, including but not limited to timeline, options for multi-year contracts, and other strategies to improve transparency and efficiency. So moved.
I'll second.
Second from Commissioner Barbara Baca. Any discussion or questions that I can answer on the amendment from my colleagues? Commissioner Frank Baca.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, as you indicated already, the largest percentage or share of our budget is in salaries, which, well, it should, in my view of the world. It is our staff that makes this organization, right? This building doesn't make this organization, it's our staff. Philosophically, I don't have any problem with that. I support that. But my comment is to things I've heard over the last couple of months. As you know, I'm new to this process. Been here 3 months, almost 4 months now. And in terms of public safety in general, I've heard 4 different entities, if you will, raise issues to us in regards to serious issues they have. The fire department, Bernalillo County Fire Department, we just heard, address the issue of pay parity. We've heard YSC earlier talk about 40% vacancy rate. I think that's the figure they indicated. A couple of months ago, I've heard the Bernalillo County Sheriff talk about the court security staff in terms of it being hard to fill position because of the pay. And then with MDC, I understand that we have a lot of overtime that goes, to that institution because of the, and I don't remember the numbers in terms of the vacancies or whatever. So I'm just thinking and wondering in regards to all of those. I haven't heard that from a lot of other divisions, and all, we know, we don't even have to say it, but it's true. All of these different agencies, departments we have are important. I mean, that's not even going to argue that point. I even really have to say it. We all know that, but it just seems to me over the short few months that I've been here, we've heard a lot about public safety and the need to fill vacancies, be competitive, and raise pay, and all 4 of those. And so, in regards to your motion, I do have some questions about the amount in terms of the $1.2 million, and just simply a question: where does that money come from? And I'd ask that to manager and staff. But aside from that, and going to the larger picture that I really think hit home with me, if we could broaden that a little bit to direct the county manager to work jointly with other entities beyond the fire department to look at ways to implement, assess, the markets, identify, and address disparities related to salary and benefits that will address these issues of all those 4 different entities. And I apologize if I'm forgetting one of them, but MDC is crucial, and their overtime is a big concern. I took a tour of YSC, very impressed with the organization, the people they have there. But having a 4% vacancy is concerning to me. And the sheriff's office at the court security, been a lawyer for many years, I've been in that courthouse many, many times, and what they do is important because if people go through there, they're gonna have their lives changed, through the criminal justice system. So the fire department, as we know, is life and death. So I guess my question is generally, would you like to consider broadening that directive to the county manager to look at all 4 of those different entities? And then more specifically in regards to your motion, in regards to the fire department, I would just like to understand the location of where that $1.2 million or any money, whether it was going to be $500,000 or $5 million, because as Commissioner Benson pointed out, I did bring up something, and there was a little bit of pushback. I won't go into the details about that with a small amount of money because of our flat budget, quite frankly. And so, what does that mean? I've been a bureaucrat. I've been in different agencies. I understand, that there are things that some of them don't get spent and money that gets moved. I get that. That's how government works. It couldn't work otherwise. So I'd just like to find out how that money is coming out, where it's going to come from, if that's realistic, that's practical. And then secondly, I really would like to see our director to county manager brought in to include all four of those entities.
So Commissioner, if I may, I want to let county manager respond to sort of where it comes from and what it means, what we're doing for those other entities, but I'll start with sort of the last questions first. So, I want to point out some of this happened, all of this happened before your time on the commission and some of it even before my time on the commission. But in our first year, Commissioner Barbara Buck and I, our first year on the commission here, the Sheriff's Department received a substantial pay increase on the order of, I believe it was close to 20%, 17% or something like that, average, right? It depends on the different positions and the bargaining process and all that, where the rest of the county, other employees received a substantially smaller cost of living increase. And I believe it was the year prior to that, there was a substantial increase made for MDC and the employees at MDC, where again, other employees across the board, in that case firefighters, YDC, sheriff's deputies received a much smaller increase. So this is not without precedent as far as how the county has operated in the past, sort of targeting increases to different units. So that is sort of the rationale behind doing it this way. As far as the dollar amount, the actual need that has been presented to me, and I believe we've all received the same information, is that in order to achieve parity with the city of Albuquerque firefighters, right? And President, his last name, it always gets right off my tongue. So President Teddy talked about this up here, how our county firefighters actually do the same job with less resources because we run 3-person engines. The city of Albuquerque runs 4. So we're already starting a little bit, it's a slightly harder job, if you will. And so some of the information that was provided to me, just showing the comparison of public safety positions between the city and county. Animal protection officers at the city of Albuquerque are making around $23 an hour. Our folks are making $27.50 an hour. 911 operators at the city of Albuquerque, $23 an hour. Emergency communicators at Bernalillo County, $27.30 an hour. Sheriff's deputies, $39.29 an hour. Police officers, $35.91 an hour. So for those 3 very similar positions, we have clearly prioritized higher pay here at the county versus the city. We're in the opposite situation with regards to fire. And so the actual need that has been presented to me is just to keep up with what the city is going to do this year in their proposed budget. We actually need $4 million to keep up with them. We don't have that. I don't think that would be fair to YDC, our other groups, our other employees that are in critical roles. So I think of this as a down payment. And the problem that we're trying to address here is really trying to make sure that those men and women that are just starting out in their careers in our fire rescue department have the ability to live in this county, right? Can they buy a home? Can they raise a family? Can they do these basic things, and can they be paid a fair wage that's, the same work, equal pay for equal work, and you could even make an argument that it's more difficult work. So that's really where the dollar amount comes from. It is not enough, but I think it's a down payment on a longer term solution. And I do think the county manager can probably go into some of the other plans for some of those other hard-to-recruit positions and areas that also need help. But, in my mind, this is a part of our job, right? It's making difficult decisions that, there's really no perfect way to do this, right? We kind of have to make a decision here that isn't necessarily perfect, but I think it gets us closer to a point that we probably all agree we need to reach of basic fairness. So I think that answers most of your question, and I don't know if County Manager wants to jump in, and then we will get to you, Commissioner Benson, in just a moment here.
Mr. Chair, and I'll defer to you, but my questions are related that County Manager might be able to answer combined, but I will defer to you in the
Go ahead.
In terms of support for IAFF Local 244, absolutely, I agree. And that's what one of the things that the government should be for, is to guarantee safety for our citizens. Tax dollars should be going to that. I think my concern is the combination of these three items, and Mr. Chair, you could address it, or County Manager. The first item discusses assessing a market study to identify and address disparities. I think that's important, and that reflects what was spoken earlier in public comment. But then the second item refers to a specific dollar amount, $1.2 million. And if we're really looking to assess disparities, assuming they haven't already been discovered, and I think that's why you put that in here, is because you can identify dollar amounts, but we need to find out specifically where the disparities are, I assume. What if it's more than $1.2 million that needs to be allocated right now? Or what if it's less? I think getting specific in the dollar amount is, that's my issue here. And then that ties to the third item when it refers to improving the current collective bargaining, is that we're in the middle of collective bargaining. And so adding the $1.2 million specifically muddies up that negotiation, which we're not supposed to be part of as commissioners. And so the three of these items combined are kind of my issue. Each one of those, I like, even the $1.2 million, I like the concept of it, but it may not be enough, or it may be too much in the first year. I don't know, but that's part of the bargaining session, and then that goes to the third item. So, Mr. Sherry, you could address, or County Manager.
If I could ask you just a clarifying question, are you suggesting that we, vote on these separately, or how, do you have a preference?
I would support this, but strike 1B.
Okay, noted.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, County Manager.
Let me, first of all, I just want to say how much I appreciate the very thoughtful comments that all of you have made. And I want to take one giant step back to say that I have a very high level of discomfort with this approach. I really do. Here's what the challenge is. One of the things that we should have done that we did not do this cycle is we should have come to you in closed session months and months ago and said, here's our strategy. And now we would have had a challenge a little bit on the financing because we were still trying to figure that out. But here's what we generally think we can invest in our employees. For each experience that I've had, whether it's been our legislative experience or budgeting, we and the senior team that you see here before you are doing follow-up with our staff so that we can improve all of these processes. And the idea of diving deep into looking at why we don't do multi-year contracts, why our contracts are aligned with the budget process, which meant that we opened a whole bunch of contracts, agreed to open them. As you all were deliberating, we actually pushed this date back to give more time to the public and all of you, which meant that we pushed back the negotiations. So all of this needs a really fresh eye to take a look at how we improve the system. So for that item, I'm super excited. On the item that was raised by Commissioner Baca and you around how we do an appropriate assessment of our needs. The county was so behind, as you know, you're an employer, I know you know this. The county was so behind on all of how we were paying people across the board, from janitors to, I mean, there wasn't a person that we were paying appropriately. Once you all did that big analysis and made some significant changes, it now positions us to do something that I would have been recommending to you anyway, which is in these very hard to serve areas, what do we need to do to really make these jobs desirable? Whether you are doing the important work at our Youth Services Center or the very important work of working in MDC. I mean, like and let me just say this, year over year, because our negotiation process, in my mind, has not been as, frankly, both as collaborative and raising the expectations on both sides of the aisle, we have some operational inefficiencies that are dramatic. And so, by giving us direction to clean up the process and come back to you with that. Second, by giving us a direction to go in and do, because I think, Chair, I'm sorry, I'm getting all my Bacas mixed up here, I apologize. But Commissioner Frank Baca's point about diving in deep to anybody who's got an over 30% vacancy rate is on our to-do list anyway. Starting with fire, as Chair Olivas is asking us to do, is important in part because, as you all have made the case, that there's some concern about the significant discrepancy and I don't know if there is one, you know, to be frank with you, I'm gonna assume there is some, I don't know if it's 4 million, but that really being able to look at our partner agency at the city is critical, and then working with these really hard to serve folks and doing very structured looks at them. Now the goal with the amount of money we set aside was to clean up as much of that as we could this round, because we know we have departments that are suffering with not having enough staff, and we can't have people continue to burn out. So they are our priority, which is why the way this was structured was more money than I would have done in a flat budget, to Chair Olivas's point. Now, let me just talk about this 1.2 million. One thing I have very much appreciated, and I've had this experience with all of you, is that when you have an idea of something you think we should be doing, I love, and our senior staff here really appreciates, when you come and you talk to us, because our job is to help you figure out how to get what you want done. We work for you. Even if I don't love an idea, my job is to make it function as best we can. Because Chair Olivas was able to have a conversation with us, we are looking at opportunities and options both to push forward fire and not neglect either all of our staff or these really hard to serve places. It does impede my flexibility, and it really does, but it is work that we would have to do in some order anyway. Now, let me just say one last thing. I am not in agreement that my brothers out there and sisters in the IFF need $4 million or they're X amount behind, because I haven't seen a study that I think is fair enough for me to say, I know that this is a problem. What I will say is this, there is no doubt in my mind that by investing an additional 1.2 million, it gets us closer to an area we do have disparities, and that the study would actually show us in what areas we will still have them. So the one reason this isn't out of sorts is they are behind. Whether it's a $4 million behind, I don't think that's the case. Are they behind $1 million? Yes. So that's why, even though I'm uncomfortable with the order, I'm also saying to all of you, we didn't give you the benefit of weighing in on this process when we should have. And so whatever direction you give us, we will make work. Absolutely. I'm comfortable with the framework. It's not my preference, but next year this should not need to happen. that is my goal.
Madam County Manager, could you expand a little bit, as much as you can, to kind of answer Commissioner Frank Baca's question about what your plans are, because we've had discussions about this, to sort of, even if this passes, what flexibility you still have to achieve your goals related to those 30% positions, the hard to recruit?
Yeah, so the way we structured, and let me just also say, one thing I have not had the experience, this is a new experience for me, because in California, we didn't say this is how much money we had, and so as you all were talking about this, this has been a new environment. But I actually have come to appreciate the idea of just saying, this is how much we have to spend, so our unions understand. And I thought President Teddy's point about the, that other people deserve every penny they get, that it really allows the unions both to think about their role, but also each other's too, right? Like, how are we all gonna get people across the finish line? So to that end, Commissioner Frank Baca, I'm so sorry,
That's
but-
okay, we're pals.
I know, and you're right next to each other, not even making it all less helpful. But Frank, Commissioner Baca, the way we structured the approach was to make sure that we have a cost of living approach, and that we have an area of efficiency approach, so where we can get efficiencies through our negotiations. And then the other was to set aside resources for targeted investment. I think one of the challenges the county has had in the past is that we've had a very peanut butter way of dealing with negotiations, which is everybody gets Y. And what happens when you do that is within a particular bargaining unit, those really hard to serve areas don't get the resources they need. And our approach is very different. Now, I want to say again, next year, I will not be having this conversation. We would be having it in closed session. But I do believe that the way this is structured, we have the resources to address significantly the issues that I've just outlined.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Barbara Baca.
A question on that, County Manager, the way that this amendment is structured, we have the ability to move forward. I know you said that you don't absolutely aren't thrilled about it, but the way that this amendment is structured, we can move forward with the plan that you articulated to us in an email earlier in the week.
Yes.
So the 1.2 million comes out of that.
It comes
stated,
the bucket is one size. So this money will come out of that bucket. So we're not going to increase the budget. We couldn't today anyway. That's not the right approach, but it will stay in one bucket. And the other thing I'll just remind you is a week ago, I sent to all of you a report that looked at the COLA and increases for all of our bargaining units. And I want to just say, I'm going to read this into the record because I think it's important to note that our non-union employees since 2018 have received a 5% increase. And our highest unions receiving increases have actually been fire at 44%. Now, the reason I'm telling you that is to say that even the document I sent you, we just created it in the last month. Like, these are all tools that we should have had in front of you a long time ago, is my point. But we'll get there. We're going to get there. And do I have the flexibility I need? Yes. Would I always argue for more flexibility? Yes. Does this make me uncomfortable? Yes. But can we move forward? Absolutely.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, and I have another follow-up. So one option, Commissioner Baca, now I'm going to the other side, is to add an additional maybe 1D that, that mentions what we've talked about, the other priority positions. I too feel like you've explained it to my satisfaction that we could move forward on this, but to emphasize the Youth Services Center as one of those that you're targeting. the MDC, you know, and dealing with overtime that you're targeting with this finite amount of money that you've identified and subject to negotiations. I mean, that's one mechanism by which we can address Commissioner Baca's.
Well, let me just say, I want to really make sure that we're, that we are being mindful that I am saying today, I am not setting a precedent for how we will proceed. So that's one thing. But to your point, I think, Commissioner Baca, which I think is a really important one, is that one commitment we could add, if it created comfort for the commission, is to be able to add every position that is, and this is a challenge over a certain size, because for positions that, not every position requires us to make an enhancement. It may just be that there are two people who do it and one's out. But like for all of our areas in public safety, everybody who has an over 30% vacancy rate, we can do a market study really quickly to start to dive into how we bring those up. But we're going to do that as part of this process as well. So we don't have to wait. And I would just say these processes are really iterative, and that's one of the both challenges and opportunities that we have, because it is iterative.
Commissioner Frank Baca, I wanted to circle back to you, and then I think Commissioner Benson may have another, but I don't know if you
No,
wanted
not
to
at this
add
point,
anything.
no.
Okay, Commissioner Benson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Madam County Manager. Back to the $1.2 million, we just attended, Mr. Martinez, we just attended the ethics training, so it was repeated to us what our authority is and what it's not. And so that's my concern here, is getting the commission into trouble when it comes to collective bargaining. And I also want to say that I was an advocate for the sheriff's department and the sheriff's union pay. But we never directed dollar amounts. In fact, we just voiced support based on our constituents. And if anyone would have pushed dollars, I think it would have come from me, with my absolute frustration with crime, not necessarily in just the sheriff's unincorporated area, but all over Albuquerque. But we never discussed dollar amounts. We left that to the county manager, and then it actually ended up being a bigger raise for the sheriff's union than I expected. And so that's my caution here, is micromanaging too much outside of what our authority is. So, Mr. Attorney, County Attorney, can you kind of just satisfy item 1B? Is that, does that muddy the waters for the commission getting involved in collective bargaining? Or does it not?
That's a great question. And the first answer is that the good news is this discussion's happening in an open meeting in front of everybody.
Right.
Very transparently. So that's good news. Having some certain may cause some heartburn. What the level of heartburn on that is really up for you guys to decide. Because if you have a some certain and you've already opened, is it actually kind of bargaining, or is it just allocating resources, which this commission's job on the budget is to allocate limited resources for the best expenditures. I agree with the county manager that it's a weird provision in Open Meetings Act to go into a pre-collective bargaining meeting where you can do it privately and have these types of conversations before bargaining. But I think you guys are proceeding ethically, and I think you're proceeding pursuant to the rules, and you guys are all pretty well educated on those issues. There's some questions, because I think it's first to have a direct amount of money mentioned, but it's something that we can work forward on if there's any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. Mr. Chair, then I guess I would follow up that the 1.2 million, it does, we have not done that before for a specific union in before the budget was agreed upon. And it worked out to the benefit of the union before. And so I would either, to your approval, either separate these into separate votes or strike the dollar amount, to leave it to the unions and the collective bargaining process to negotiate.
Mr. Chair.
Let me respond just briefly there, and I want to say that, very, very fair question about the dollar amount, and, I've expressed my frustrations, partly through this amendment, on how we align our timelines with budget for bargaining, right? And it's very strange that every contract in the county, including our collective bargaining agreements, state subject to appropriation, right? That is like the automatic out. If this commission says, we're not gonna fund your contract, or we're not gonna fund your individual position, or the whole fire department, whatever it might be, it's null and void. That's our role, right, is to provide appropriations. So, anyway, it's been very frustrating to me and played out more so this year than other years for whatever reason, that, we have ongoing negotiations before we've even approved an amount for the manager to negotiate. I mean, we could go right now and say, we're gonna take that whole bucket of money and we wanna put it somewhere else, right? We could do something else with the whole thing. And now all of a sudden, there's nothing to negotiate for other than working conditions and, some other things, but there's no money. So I think we absolutely have the authority to do this. And I actually think that the commission, just my opinion, has, over a period of time, probably predating any of us, delegated, again, my opinion, maybe a little too much of its appropriations role to the management side of the table, sort of saying, we're not gonna say anything about these numbers and just kind of let it be vague, right? We didn't even know how much money was allocated to salaries until very recently. So I don't think that's anyone's fault currently, but I think we can assert our role as appropriators. I think that's important to do. I think we absolutely have that authority to do that as a commission. This is not a move I would make myself on my own or, as an individual commissioner, but I think as a commission, we absolutely have the authority to direct the county manager to take various actions. I am open to separating these for individual votes, and I'm open to further discussion on 1B. If there's a way to make that amenable to the group, I'm at least open to the discussion, and I know Commissioner Barbara Baca wanted to weigh in with something.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it would be wise to take a vote on each of those, 1A, 1B, 1C separately. I think that would be helpful. I do, though, seconded this motion because I like it. I think that we have some accord with our county manager here. There's been discussions about it. She's shared with us the amount of money that's available. It doesn't tie her hands completely. It sets priorities, and that's what the conversation is. To me, that's what this does. It sets a priority on parity for our firefighters, which is very important to me, and we've been talking about that for a couple of years that I've been here, because public safety, including public safety for BCSO as well as fire, has been on the front burner. And the first year, we did give that big raise to BCSO, and I was a big part of that as well, Commissioner, because it's really important. That's important to our constituencies. We know that public safety is probably the highest priority, seconded only by our housing crisis. But public safety is key, and so I'm in favor of moving this forward, particularly because of 1A and 1C that talks about giving the county manager the ability to get more data and work with the union to really flesh it out. I do believe that there is a deficit that's much greater than the 1.2 million that's listed here. And where I'm coming down on this is when we see urban wildland fires in Maui, in Los Angeles, in other communities, this is what we're asking our firefighters to do. And that is coming because of climate change. We all know that. We've talked about this, right on the Bosque, and I see that right behind our yards. You know, we have the beautiful community and our natural spaces adjacent to urban spaces, and these folks are tasked with protecting us. And so that's why I feel that although it may not be the way that the county manager would like it initially to go, I think she's in agreement that she can work with this language. So I urge us to really consider what the manager said, that it doesn't, you know, it can move forward, and it gives her flexibility. And it gives her truly our priorities stated clearly. That's what I think our role is, in our appropriating role, is to state those priorities. And I agree with these listed on this amendment. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Baca. And one response here, it's more of a nod to the manager. We worked closely on this, and this started very different from what it is right now. And I think she'll attest to that. Because you know, my initial reaction was to meet the need that was presented. And so, as I said, that need was presented to me to be significantly higher than this. And I do believe the need is significantly higher than what we can reasonably offer at this time. But in working with her and her working with her team, we were able to work through this and actually come up with some, you know, what I think is a really good compromise here that invests in the long run data piece, if you will, getting the really good, clear information that everybody agrees on. But it also makes a down payment on the now, which is that we know these positions are underpaid. And as the manager said, she does believe that it's may not be 4 million, but it's more than 1 million. And so we kind of know we're going to need this, whether we agree on the exact final number. So, you know, I really do think this is an investment and a priority that I think we all share. And, you know, I hope that we can get everybody up here to support this. But yes, Commissioner Benson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, or Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner Baca, as well. I would propose then, listening to your both of your language, which I agree with. My concern is just specifying this, especially after the convincing meetings we had on ethics. What if I would propose 1B saying something to the effect of, as the commission's top priority, comma. And so that would highlight the effect that this aspect of salaries is our priority, getting parity here. And then adding the language to include, in the second line, benefits to include at least an additional $1 million. So it's a round number, but then that gives her flexibility to use 100% of her budget if she felt it was necessary, but it still pulls or we could leave it up to at least an additional 1.2 million. The 0.2 million is very specific, and that's what caught my attention. But if you insist, it would be to include at least an additional $1 million allocated to the IFA. So that has a floor, and then it doesn't have a ceiling of 1.2. And so then it still gives authority to the county manager in her negotiations. And so we're not seen as, it doesn't come back to bite us. That would be, and I would be open to feedback, Mr. Chair.
Could you restate the first part of that? I got the second line, but.
Yeah. As is the priority, something to the effect, and Mr. Attorney, you could opine as well, but as is the priority of the county commission, a language to effect that this bargaining is our top priority currently, while they're negotiating with other, in other bargaining processes as well. And then the rest of the language, but then adding in the language, at least, and additional.
How does the seconder of the original motion feel? Okay. And I would maybe suggest, first of all, I don't want to say the top priority, because I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time here. And YDC is a top priority, fire is a top priority, court security is a top priority. So if we could use the language as a top priority versus the top, just so that it's
I concur.
minor, but, and I might suggest that just at the end of the whole paragraph, position subject to negotiation as a top priority for the county.
I concur.
Madam County Manager?
Thank you. That sounds fine to me too. The only thing I wanted to caution is on the, I do have a high level of discomfort about naming an amount. So but what I would just say is that I don't think it should be at least. I would leave that language out in part because this is subject to negotiation. And I think if we are putting a floor in, that is more directive than just saying, here's an amount that we'd like you to, that you're directing me to consider in order to address these issues.
And I will say this language was crafted in close collaboration with the manager and the county attorney, the original language. So we were very thoughtful about how this was stated to not be overly prescriptive or overly specific, so as to hinder those negotiations or favor a particular side in that process, really just functioning in our role as appropriators to. Thank you. So I don't know how you feel about that.
I'm okay withdrawing my request. Then it gets back to as is, the language is specific, telling her exactly how much to spend on the union, which I don't. Mr. Attorney said we could, it's murky and we'd probably be okay. That's a warning flag for me. So that's my issue with this.
So would you be okay if you want to put it at 1 million or?
Well, the county manager is uncomfortable with the at least. And so I'm happy to withdraw that. But if that's the case, I don't feel comfortable with specifying a dollar amount in the middle of negotiations.
Just one clarification, Commissioner Benson. I did not hear the county attorney saying that this was murky. So.
That's what I heard after I asked the question.
Can you
Do you want to clarify, Mr. County Attorney?
There's, I don't think we've done it before, so it's a question of first impression. I don't know the complete answer to the question, and a lot of this probably should be individual discussions with each of you, because we're talking about legal issues. But the question presented is that you're in a collective bargaining environment. It's opened, and now you're creating a budget, and we all agree it's kind of the timeline could be better, but you have a amount specific for a bargaining unit up here. Now, the discussion's in public, and you guys, it's not one person, it's the commission coming up with a plan, so the transparency is clear on it. It's just, I think the manager says it's kind of creates some discomfort in the bargaining process. I think she's indicated she's capable of managing that, and I believe she is. it's the first time I think we've had some certain, I've checked, for an amount to go into a bargaining negotiation. But I think we've added the magic word, subject to bargaining. So that's the magic word, is that it's subject to bargaining, which I would say here, that in the bargaining negotiations, it may be less than the 1 million or the 1.2 million targeted, because it's a bargaining situation. But I would like to make that clear. Anywhere that you leave more flexibility for the bargaining to proceed between the parties, it's better in the bargaining process, because that's the way it's built.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. So what?
Commissioner Benson, and then I'll go
Well, it
back
was
to
my
Commissioner.
question, I think, that I asked of the
Okay, go ahead.
the attorney. So the key words are that last part of the sentence, subject to negotiation. So the amount of 1.2 million just, it sets the priority to the manager. It doesn't say thou shalt spend that much. I mean, it's subject to negotiation, but it indicates our priority. So just to finish, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Benson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Martinez. So subject to negotiation nullifies the $1.2 million ultimately?
It would still have to go through the regular process of collective bargaining negotiations. I think you're setting a target, is the word I would use, and a priority. But I would also suggest that, and it would be a fight. Let's say that you don't reach, let's say it's not a 1.2 added to it, or let's say it should be more. The answer would be, look, it was clear that it was subject to the negotiation process. So there's this recommendation of a prioritization to come up with, let's say, $1 million, but it still has to go through the bargaining process. And that would require the parties to agree, and then finally it comes to you for final approval. But it is subject to the negotiation. That language, I think, absolutely has to be included in there.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That clarifies it for me. It does limit the negotiations. It gives a ceiling to them in terms of our priority, but then again, it kind of nullifies it. So ultimately, the $1.2 million, it doesn't really even matter. We could say $5 million because it's still subject to negotiations. Or we could say zero, but then it's still subject to negotiations, and then they could end up getting $2 million. So it doesn't really, so this is more, for show, I think. But my key language is subject to negotiation, which means that we're not meddling in something that we're not supposed to be meddling in, which makes me comfortable. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I want to point out.
I'm okay with the language. Thank you.
Okay. I do want to point out that actually there is precedent for this. And in fact, I think the commission has been perhaps more specific in the past. Under our former county manager, we approved a 10% raise for all bargaining units subject to negotiation. We're just doing it with, instead of a percentage, we're doing it with a dollar amount. It works out the same way. We could calculate this 1.2 into a percentage and say that this is not the number, but we're doing a 6% raise for IAFF members subject to bargaining. And that's the same language we used last year in the budget we approved with 10%. So I think this is just a different way of doing the same thing. I don't know that one is better than the other, but I sort of wanted to point that out, that we actually do have a strong precedent of doing this just in a slightly different way. Commissioner Benson.
Mr. Chair, thank you. The difference, though, is that 10% was brought forward to us by the HR department after their investment in a new HR software. It wasn't determined by us saying, Madam County Manager, former county manager, you will pay 10%. It was brought to us and we approved. And then the sheriff's department, again, it was brought forward to us and then we approved. So that was my discomfort. However, I'm okay with it as long as the negotiations still remain, and we can then vote to ratify the result of those negotiations. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Frank Baca, did you?
Yeah, I'm
Say-
okay with it. I sense the county manager's level of discomfort and appreciate her honesty of that. I also sense her willingness to make it work. Put you in a difficult position, quite frankly. I don't know how I would have felt if you would have said you were against it. Be honest with you. But since you said you could make it work, I will assume that you can make it work. I agree, it is not the ideal situation, but a lot of it is quite frankly timing, in terms of a new system, new manager, new me. Not that I played a large role in the discussions, but there's some newness to it, and so yeah, given the discussion, and yeah, with the comments I've heard, the responses and question, to the questions, yeah, I'd be okay with this.
Okay. All right, we're going to close the floor. Had a really good discussion here on this. So, Commissioner Benson, do you still want us to do these one at a time? Or
No, thank you.
You don't mind? Okay. So we're just going to go ahead and take that back. We're going to do the whole thing as is, as was previously read into the record and seconded by Commissioner Barbara Baca. The floor is closed, and so all those in favor of the amendment signal in the affirmative. Aye?
Yes.
Aye.
And that passes on a 4-0 vote. Thank you, everyone, for a really robust discussion, thoughtful discussion about salaries and priorities and, the work that we're doing here. That's what our budget is, right? It's a values document, and I think that we're going to be able to make investments in several core public safety areas. So, appreciate that. Any further discussion on the motion at large? Yes, Commissioner Frank Baca.
Yes, Mr. Chair, and just what I've heard the manager say that in terms of the other groups that I mentioned, in terms of MDC, this court security officer, and what I understand, that's already in the works. Is that correct, Manager?
So,
In terms of the study and.
yeah,
looking at the,
no, it isn't. What I'm suggesting is that once we get through this negotiation process, that we take a much deeper dive, but we're going to use this negotiation process to support our highest need areas, particularly in public safety. But any area where we have a significant vacancy, we are going to be investing money. And frankly, one of the reasons that that I would have not wanted any restrictions is so that it gave us the flexibility to respond to all the high need areas even more flexibly. All that said, we are going to prioritize high vacancy areas, period, right away. What I want to do is once we get through the negotiation process, we will talk to you, we'll talk to the unions about how do we improve this process, timelines and all of that, because the timelines are flawed, and we'll make sure we're talking to you earlier. Prior to us doing that, for each of these high vacancy areas, we will do additional research, because in some instances, it may not be a market, we could have the best paid probation officers, but if we have other issues at the facility, we need to deal with those issues. And I'm using that illustratively, but so part of it is that we need to understand at a much more rigorous level why people take these jobs, why do they keep them, why would they want to stay? Because ultimately, Bernalillo County should be an employer of choice. If people want to do a particular kind of work and we offer it, they should want to come here. So that's a big part of what we have to figure out, and we'll do that together. I will just say too, I want to say this out loud again, that the process will be very different next year. I want to make sure we're having the closed litigation discussions so that we really can talk about priorities in a much more strategic way than we did today. But I want to emphasize the point that that Mr. Martinez raised, which is if we're going to have these discussions outside of closed session, there's only one other place to have them, and that's here. And that's what we ended up doing tonight. So I think there's a value to that. And I've heard what you said. I hear what your priorities are. I've got a great team here that's going to work with me to implement those priorities.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, the motion on the floor is for adoption of the 4 motions, I believe it is, for the, or no, 7 motions for the FY '26 budget. Julianne, just a process question. Do we need to vote on those individually?
On the proposed amendments,
No. I think we're done with amendments,
Okay.
the motions for the
if
budget.
there's a consensus, then you can vote on them all in one.
Okay. Is there any objection to one consideration of all these budget motions? All right, I don't see any. So we'll go ahead and close the floor. This is for adoption of the FY '26 budget. All those wishing to vote in the affirmative?
Aye.
Yes?
Aye.
And that passes on a 4-0 vote. And just want to say a huge thank you and congratulations to our county manager on her first budget, and a big thank you to our whole budget team, Shirley, and I know some of the budget team is in the back there. Appreciate you sticking with us here and all your support and hard work in this process, including the changes. So I want to express my appreciation and the appreciation of the whole commission to the whole budget team. All right, next up we have economic development. We have the Housing Division Budget and Economic Development Department Steering Committee and Community Dialogue Budget. Ms. Carolyn Tobias to present. Oh, I'm sorry, one process thing here real quick. If we could get Madam Clerk to please provide a resolution number for item 10B.
Thank you. I apologize for that, Mr. Chair, for that omission. Item 10B is FR 2025-49. Thank you.
Thanks for the reminder there, Madam Clerk. Ms. Tobias, go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the Commission. Carolyn Tobias, Economic Development Manager. And this evening, the Economic Development staff requests approval for the financial resolution in the amount of $1,567,937 to accept and budget funding from the Economic Development Payment in Lieu of Taxes, or PILT Fund balance, to support the county's new Housing Development Division and the Economic Development Policy and Strategy Community Dialogue process. Additionally, we're also requesting approval to authorize the county manager to execute subsequent amendments related to and resulting from this request. I would like to give just a brief context and overview of this particular financial resolution. Firstly, on March 25th of this year, AR 2025-16 was approved by the Commission for the County Manager's Housing Development Division, which included budgeting 3 staff. Additionally, soon thereafter, the BCC adopted AR 2025-29, which was a request to have our department further community engagement around policies and strategic direction for economic development with the county, and to report back on those community dialogue sessions held between May and October of this year, and recommend then to the BCC subsequent changes to economic development policy for the county. What I've outlined here is that the department used these particular funds to provide you with a tentative budget allocation for each of these requests, just to give you some context of why we're asking what funds to go to what bucket. And I can come back to that if you have questions. But I thought it was worth pointing out that the sustainability of these particular resolutions, first and foremost, the Housing Development Division, from this point on, the Economic Development Department have decided that we would allocate our housing annual fees to this particular internal order, or this particular housing fund, to help support the Housing Development Division moving forward. And then secondly, the Economic Development Policy and Strategy Community Dialogue Resolution is a point-in-time resolution, a one-time action. I will say that
there is question around like the amounts, and just to be completely frank with you, to give context, 1.3 or just over 1.3 of this fund was returned in Flagship Foods IRB clawback, came back to the county. 251,200 returned to the county from the Albuquerque Bernalillo County Water Utility Authority from an economic development project that they didn't fully expend. So there we have the the 1.5 and change million that we're talking about. And we just, for practical purposes, neatly divided that, to be frank, to 500,000 towards economic development projects, of which the community dialogue process was one resolution that we're charged to enact, and the remaining just over $1 million for the Housing Development Division. So I just wanted to give some clarity on why those numbers were separated in that regard. And so the action today would be to approve budgeting of these funds so that these funds currently, with the new fiscal year and this timing, would sweep into fund balance. But the budgeting of these funds today would enable us to move forward with the timeline of executing those particular resolutions. And I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Tobias. Commissioner Barbara Baca.
Thank you. So if these funds are all not needed during these community dialogues, and even though we're appropriating them here, they would also go to the fund balance and stay within the economic development function. And so we wouldn't lose them or misappropriate them by doing this with these identified numbers in a very, as we all know, important and priority effort with our Housing Development Division.
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Barker, that's exactly right. It's the budgeting is a step in the process that enables us to spend. And the Economic Development Department currently, as you're familiar with the overview, or the in-depth overview of our current budget, we do not have funds for these resolutions. And so therefore, accessing and budgeting these particular funds was determined to be a solution that we wanted to bring forth to the commission for consideration.
Thank you.
Commissioner Frank Baca.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I'm very excited about this funding in terms of being available, and both for the housing component as well as the economic development. There's some things that were brought forward at a meeting a few months ago that I'm still thinking about, and independently and in conjunction with the committee that was organized. I think there's a great opportunity to do some really big things with economic development in this county. I think that group is positioned to do that. I think there's the resources out there, the community, especially through the university, but obviously that takes money, takes funding. So I think putting this money to those two uses is really wise and helpful. So I fully support that. Thank you so much.
Before we get into any more discussion, do we have a motion on the?
I move approval.
Second.
Motion and a motion from Commissioner Barbara Baca, second from Commissioner Frank Baca. Commissioner Benson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Tobias, can you explain where the PILT funds came from? Because I think we do get a lot of comments about our industrial revenue bonds and, issues from the community as if we're giving money away. Can you explain where these funds came from?
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Benson, absolutely. So payment in lieu of taxes, or PILT, is a fee that the Economic Development Department invoice to a company that has been approved for an industrial revenue bond. The industrial revenue bond is a tax exemption that we are providing them to help with their cash flow and the capital stack. It is not 100% exemption, although it appears 100% so that they can be under the Bernalillo County tax exemption. However, they are required to pay something, and what that is this payment in lieu of taxes, or the PILT. So that PILT money is collected by our department. specifically to be reinvested into the community through economic development. So we're using the funds through our policies to, in a sense, keep generating the benefit of that business who is receiving the industrial revenue bond benefit.
Thank you, Mr. Bice. And Mr. Chair, that's kind of the point I wanted to highlight here is I want to make sure that doesn't get covered as we decide how to spend the PILT funds, is that this is just additional justification for IRBs. The goal of an IRB is to incentivize business growth, job creation, economic development, and then in return for that economic development that the county is doing through your department, the county also receives these PILT funds, which then we can reinvest into the community in important issues like housing and economic, this economic development initiative. So I think this is just an example of the system, how it was intended to working. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Benson. I have a couple questions. So on the researcher and the consultant, those are contemplated in here, I'm guessing, just by the outlay. Those are contract positions, and then we've got the 3 staff positions that are included. Okay. And can you tell me a little bit about what are due diligence funds?
Mr. Chair, so due diligence funds include things like the housing feasibility study that we're undergoing for Union Square. The real estate team and Public Works have due diligence funds in their budget, but the county has never before had a housing development division. So we have now opened another can of worms where if we're investigating a particular property for transitional housing or the like, then both our real estate team, our Public Works team need to have access and able to vet them to see that they're an appropriate investment and that what we're trying to achieve with affordable housing is a truly appropriate choice. And I will also want to defer to Madam County Manager, since this is her initiative, if you want to answer.
Well, you're doing all the work, so no, you're doing great, and the initiative is actually Commissioner Baca's. But one thing I wanted to add is that what's really important about the due diligence fund is that these funds allow us to move quickly when we have an inquiry. Because one of the challenges dealing in this new market environment, and I would argue that this is one of the outcomes I'm going to be interested in seeing from the economic development team, is how we structure ourselves so we can be opportunistic. And this is an example of that, meaning, oh, this is for sale. Let's go take a look at it. Let's get an appraisal. You know, like being really able to respond instead of, what are we going to do? Where do we go get money? You know, all that. And the other thing I would just comment is, I know this appears to be a lot of money. I do want to reemphasize the point you raised about returning money that we're not using. But the other thing is that you've given us an awful lot of work to accomplish in a very short period of time. What we were trying to avoid was having to come back for rebudgeting and slowing anything down. As you've seen, and I think all of you have had this experience on one of your projects where we've come back and said, oh, we've done this, we're gonna come back to you, then you're gonna vote on, you know, we wanna be able to say, you've given us direction, give us milestones, let us hit those milestones. That's really the way the structure's been going. And I've been I have to say, thrilled with the work that our economic development team has been doing. They've been fantastic.
Very good. So that's things like an environmental assessment, an appraisal, a survey.
Speed.
Okay, I got you. I have no problem with this. I think this is following through on your commitment, on our commitment to attack this housing problem head on and put resources into it and align the mission of the county with that priority, and this puts dollars into it. On the second part of this, my only concern, and I did send an email to Director about this, is the size of the contingency is actually larger than the size of the overall budget for this. And you know, I realize you kind of went into the rationale for that. There's not really an anticipated need for that. This just says, in the event the project scope is extended. And I guess I would just be more comfortable if we just amended out 250,000 of this to stay in the PILT fund. And if the scope increases to the point where it's gonna require doubling the size of the initiative, I do kind of think that should come back to commission because, you know, we gave some pretty narrow guidance on what that steering committee was gonna do and how these dialogues would work. And I think you've laid out a really great budget down to, you know, the dollar, of what each of these things is gonna cost, from stipends to interpreters and food and Zoom licensing. So, I guess, you know, I don't know where this is gonna go, but, I would make an amendment to, strike 250,000 from the contingency, and that remaining in the PILT fund for future economic development projects, or appropriation to this if in fact there is a scope change.
I have a question, Mr. Chair, before I, for discussion purposes. So, I understand what you're saying, that that's a lot for contingency in the whole, but the fact that Ms. Tobias and county manager have said, you know, we've given them a big charge. It's our high priority in this crisis of housing, and they've taken it on and done their best guess. So contingency, now that I hear this, and particularly the due diligence part of it, I think that probably should be beefed up because I'm really concerned with where we're heading, and we're trying to do due diligence and also very speedy. And sometimes those two things are hard to do, and they require dipping into a contingency fund. That's the one thing that I would say that, and I'm comfortable because if it's contingency, it'll still stay for other economic development purposes. It won't be taken to the general fund or anything like that. So it's a cushion. I understand, and you've never had a housing development division before, so this budget is really sort of a best guess. And I just am very glad that you are looking at both economic development and housing together for these PILT funds, because this payment in lieu of taxes is really a small amount that we get back from the developers who do their, you know, that have these incentives. It's a small amount, and I've always wondered, what is the best way to use that? Where have we used it? And to me, this is a targeted use of payment in lieu of taxes, that it's truly a community benefit. At this point, we're sort of planning and getting going, but I can see, you know, we talked about this when we were talking about Sawmill, for example, earmarking the payment in lieu of taxes for that specific project because there's no affordable housing built into that specific project. So we wanted it to go direct, and I was told that's an internal decision to direct this PILT funding to housing or whatever purpose. So I'm actually more comfortable now with the contingency, and I know that it's there as a cushion in this best guess budget. And I guess I would just say, if you can continue as you have promised to come back and report to this commission, because we know that the state has made available a lot of money, and we're gonna need to be going hand in hand quickly with the state and the city to spend this, hopefully, apply for, use this state funding for housing that we need to have those people on, the researchers on, you know, the contracts, professional services is built into this, right?
Yes.
So I guess I'm comfortable with it, having this explanation today.
Can I respond to that?
Thank you, Mr.
So I think there's a little misunderstanding of what we're talking about. There are two separate items here, right? They're all in one motion, but you're talking about the housing division. I'm not proposing to touch that. That would remain unchanged. What I'm talking about is the Economic Development Policy and Strategy Community Dialogue, which was very specific. That resolution laid out, you know, when the meetings were gonna happen, how many members are on the steering committee, how often they're gonna meet, the specific criteria they're gonna discuss. It has a defined endpoint of October, I believe, they're presenting to us. And so, as it's currently stated today, we are telling the public that we are gonna spend $500,000 on we could, I'm sorry, but that's what's in here. We could spend up to $500,000 on a steering committee to discuss changes to our economic development policy. What I'm proposing is that we strike the $250,000 contingency. It would still leave roughly $30,000 in the contingency. And in the event that the scope of this less than 6-month community dialogue changes that drastically, that we need an additional $250,000, I think that should come back to the commission. It sounds like my colleagues maybe disagree with me, but I just think that's an awful lot of money to spend on something, maybe spend. I realize you're saying you may not need it, and I don't think you will, because you've laid out very clearly, court reporter, $1,000, facilitator, $100,000, researcher, $100,000, strategy work group, $1,500. I mean, it's very specific, the budget. The overall that you're proposing will be needed is $219,000. And then there's a $280,000 contingency. And so I would even say we could move the $250,000 into the due diligence funds. I just have a problem with telling the community that we might spend $500,000 on a group of folks that's gonna meet for less than 6 months to give us some recommendations on our economic development policies and procedures. So that's what I'm proposing, is to either reserve that $250,000 subject to our appropriation, or even I would be open to moving it into the contingents, the due diligence funds for the housing division. So that's my motion. I think it fails on a lack of a second. Okay.
Yeah, may I, so I understand the discomfort, and one of the things that I would just say is that as we proceed both on housing and economic development, that the staff has to figure out how to have appropriate oversight, appropriate role for investing, and how to move quickly. And one thing one recommendation I can make is that if the commission moves this forward, if there is going to be a significant need for resources from this pot, that we would inform you in writing about why that is. Because one of the things that we have to figure out is how to partner together in a way that adds, that maintains a strong, high level of oversight and integrity, and still lets us move relatively quickly. One of the challenges with the economic development approach that we're taking, I don't mean this in a bad way, is that you all have given us instruction. To your point, it was very detailed, and we want to do a lot of work in a really short period of time. And one area that we do not want to miss an opportunity is to make sure we have the information we need so that you can make decisions that you want to make. But the second piece of it is making sure that we've done the outreach that gets required by the committee. So we also are going to be working closely with that committee to determine, as they're moving along, what resources do they need? But I would be more than happy to make sure that as we proceed, that we inform you if there's anything significant. And I would use Chair Olivas, the number you used about the 30,000, that if we move above that in that fund, that we are informing you as quickly as we can about why and how we're doing that.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on this item?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Could I just add a point of clarification? And this clarification, our department will defer to the will of the commission. What we're requesting here today is your approval to budget this money, right? So that it moves out of this one bucket that's gonna get swept to fund balance, and it moves back into economic development PILD. So to your point, you're exactly right. Like come October, our plan is not to spend $500,000 on this process, but come October, we don't know yet what that community dialogue will make suggestion for or programming and so forth. Come October, the balance that would remain in this particular bucket would just simply be a line transfer to the housing division due diligence. Like, we wouldn't have to go through the process, while keeping you all informed. It wouldn't be another process of having to come back, to request to pull funds from the fund balance. And this is just a preliminary budgeting process that speaks to county manager's point of enabling us to be able to access those funds. We can absolutely move them where the need is greater, such as the housing division across the lines. And I regret that there is confusion and we thought would be just a simple separation of buckets. But I just wanted to make that point of clarification.
Thank you. Further discussion, commissioners? Nope. All right, we'll call the question. All those in favor, signal in the affirmative.
Can I just get clarification? We're not arguing the amendment, right?
No, the amendment failed.
Okay, so, yeah. Okay, there's a motion, I'm sorry.
For approval.
Second.
Yes, yeah. So that was a vote.
Oh, that was.
So all those in favor? Yes. No. That passes on a 3-1 vote. And let's see here. Next up, we have introductions of resolutions. So this is a kind of a new section, so I'm going to read through just sort of the process here for everyone watching so they have an understanding of how this works. All resolutions, other than the one we just did because we approved immediate action, all resolutions require 2 hearings before final approval, except in cases of a special exception, which we just made. The first hearing will serve as the resolution's introduction. The public is encouraged to review the introduced resolutions and sign up to ask questions or provide public comments. The following items will be returned at a subsequent meeting for final adoption consideration. And so this evening, this is an item that I'm sponsoring for Workforce Pre-Apprenticeship and Job Internship Program for Young Adults. And we have Deputy County Manager Lisa Cedillo-White to present.
Yes, thank you, Chair Olivas and members of the commission. Before you is a motion to approve introduction of an administrative resolution establishing a program for workforce apprenticeship and job internship program. The funding request is $250,000. The purpose of the proposed program is to create a workforce development initiative for young adults from historically underserved communities, focused on providing access and career readiness to sustainable careers in outdoor education and natural resource management while enhancing local ecosystems. The goals are to address workforce shortages, provide paid training and hands-on job experience, and creating sustainable career pathways. The proposed program will address workforce and economic gaps. The current workforce challenges are a shortage of skilled workers in climate resilience and natural resource management, and young adults facing limited access to career building opportunities, struggling to transition into stable employment. The Human Resources Department will lead a 1-year proposed pilot program in partnership with the county's Parks and Recreation and Open Space and Technical Services departments and local partners. The Workforce and Internship Program will also promote community and environmental benefits by investing in our public spaces and natural resources, such as workforce preparedness and water resources, land management, wildfire mitigation, tree restoration, and urban forestry, while supporting countywide sustainability and conservation efforts. Another benefit is building resilient communities by empowering young adults with traditional ecological knowledge integrated with modern conservation methods, and creating and building a skilled, resilient, and local labor force. In addition to addressing workforce challenges, the proposed program will benefit Bernalillo County directly by having access to skilled talent, having access to a skilled talent pipeline for environmental and sustainability roles, strengthening countywide climate resilience initiatives, creating a long-term economic opportunities for historically underserved young adults, and lastly, contributing to the county's broader commitment to economic development, workforce sustainability, and empowerment of young adults. The monetary commitment of the administrative resolution is $250,000 for a one-year pilot program to support the implementation. The overall investment of the proposed program is fostering economic opportunities, workforce development, and environmental stewardship. If approved for introduction of the administrative resolution, staff will be prepared to bring back the administrative resolution for final adoption at the May 27th commission meeting. Thank you, Chair Olivas and members of the commission. I now stand for questions.
Thank you, Deputy County Manager Cedillo White, and to your colleagues up there with you as well, that have been collaborators on this effort. I'd like to start it off with a motion to approve. A second from Commissioner Barbara Baca. And I wanted to just say off the bat here how much I appreciate actually the whole team and their collaboration on this. This is an initiative that we've all been working on collaboratively. Really the start of all of this was actually a climate and sustainability meeting that happened out in District 5 at Los Vecinos Community Center. It was a packed house, and it was for a climate grant that the city and county were jointly applying for. And there was literally, I don't know if it was hundreds, but it was probably close to 100 people in the room, and a lot of young people asking about how can we help with this? Because, you know, we're talking about putting solar on county buildings and green stormwater infrastructure in county streets across the county, not just in District 5. And these young people were asking, you know, how do we get these jobs? How do we get involved in this? You know, how do we benefit from this, not just in the environmental sense, but in the economic sense? How do we use this money that could come here, this federal money that could come here, as a ladder to economic opportunity? And so got me thinking, and, you know, talked with some partners in the community and had some internal meetings with our county manager and our whole team, but in particular, you know, Public Works and Community Services along with General Services, talking about these positions in environmental sustainability roles, of which there are actually many at the county that you wouldn't think of, and county manager has told me about some of them. The lift stations for our sewer, I think it's stormwater drains, that actually protect the river, right? It protects the river from pollutants and toxins and things that are in the stormwater. And there are real skilled operators, professional blue-collar operators that make good money maintaining and operating those systems. And so it's not just like the very traditional things that you might associate with natural resources like, I don't know, a park ranger or, you know, something like that. But there are these other roles just as important, just as technical, right? They're all different, but all very important. And so this program is really aimed at targeting those roles to build our workforce, but also have our workforce build us, right? It's a two-way street here, right? Bringing young people in, letting them learn on the job, learn from these people that have been doing these jobs for generations, see that it's a place they can see themselves and see a career, see a life for their family, but also giving us access to a pipeline of workers when, you know, we just talked about our budget and the vacancies and all these positions that we need to fill. So giving us an alternative pipeline, another pipeline from the conventional. And so I'm really excited about this. This is just a pilot. We're going to try this out. And again, I can't express enough the thanks to the team over here that put pencil to paper and figured out, you know, what are some of these positions? How can we make this happen? And they did it. So they're bringing this forward. And I want to just throw in one other thing. I am funding $160,000 in addition to this from my district directed funding. It's not part of the resolution, so we're not asking for for that to be part of this. But because it is a program with countywide benefit, I think it makes sense to outlay the additional funding to make sure that this is properly resourced and done in a good way. So with that, open up the floor. Commissioner Barbara Baca.
Just very briefly, thank you, Lisa, Danette, Elias, first names, because this is just so awesome. I mean, this is real, and I really know that you all put a lot of work into it, and thank you to the chair, because I'm 100% behind it. It's great work. Thanks.
Commissioner Benson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It might have been communicated, but I missed how many internships this would create.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, Commissioner Benson, it will create 5. There will be 5 internship positions. Our plan is to partner and for a pre-apprenticeship program. And so it will pay for pre-apprenticeship program with maybe 10 weeks of paid training. And then after their pre-apprenticeship program, then 5 interns will enter into county employment.
Okay, thank you. That was my next question. So these internships will hopefully lead into full-time jobs with the county?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, Commissioner Benson, that would be our goal.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
The only thing I left out, it's still pending, so I don't want to hinge the whole thing on this, but we're working, collaborating closely with the city of Albuquerque. The city council is looking at doing something very similar. I'm not sure where it will land, but the idea here is that there are some positions that might be unique to the city. They do a lot of work in the bosque with things that they do there, that we don't necessarily have those same jobs. So, if, again, this is a big if, but if we're able to partner with them and say they're able to do 5 and we're able to do 5, there may be some capacity there for these young people to even, experience some other jobs that aren't just in the county, but being able to float a little bit, try some other things out. That's a very high level, not necessarily part of what we're talking about here, but we have really tried to collaborate with the city and see if we can share this resource.
Mr. Chair, actually, that's even better. Ultimately, my question was, will these internships lead to sustainable jobs? And if it's only with the county, that's good, because then it would be a good investment that we get back. But if it's just into the community where the job is sustainable, even outside of the county, whether it's the city or even in private employment, that would be even better. So, thank you, Mr. Chair.
And that last point about the private sector is not lost on my mind as somebody that works in the private sector, landscaping, outdoor field. I can tell you there's a huge shortage of people with skills like irrigating, arbory, tree trimming, and those can actually be really high-paying jobs for somebody that has the right skills and certifications. And so that is not lost on this, that we could train them here at the county, and I don't want to say we're going to train them and lose them to somebody that pays more or whatever, but that is a possibility, and for those individuals and for our community, that's a good thing.
It's very exciting.
Anyone else? All right, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor for introduction? Yes?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that passes on a 4-0 vote.
Thank
Thank you very much.
Thanks, you guys. Well done.
All right, item C, fire rescue, 2025 New Mexico Fire Protection Grant for the Village of Tijeras new fire apparatus. Deputy Chief Zach Lardy to present.
Chair Levis, Commissioners, good evening. My name is Zach Lardy. I'm the Deputy Chief of Administration at Fire and Rescue. The item before you this evening is a motion to approve for introduction a financial resolution accepting a budget for FY25 for the FY25 New Mexico Fire Protection Grant awarded to the Village of Tijeras for new fire apparatus in the amount of $600,000. And then also to authorize the county manager's signature authority to accept and budget the grants if awarded. If approved, these funds will go toward the purchase of a new fire engine that will respond to calls in Harris and all over the East Mountains. This is needed fire apparatus for us. This is us replacing apparatus that is in an aging fleet, and we urge your support. With that, I'll stand for questions.
I'd like to make a motion to approve for introduction. Second from Commissioner Frank Baca. Any discussion? Really appreciate this. This is in my district, the village of Tijeras, where we provide service to that village and the surrounding community, so it's very important.
Thank you.
All right, all those wishing to vote in the affirmative?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Passes on a 4-0 vote. Thank you, Deputy Chief.
Thank you.
All right, last item for the evening, we have the Metropolitan Detention Center Medical Services and Medication Assisted Treatment Funding Request with Warden Smith to present.
Good evening, Chairman Olivas, fellow commissioners. I bring before you request to approve the introduction of the financial resolution for the healthcare gross receipt tax budget for the Metropolitan Detention Center medical services contract in the amount of $6,526,086.48. This funding will support medical service and the medical assisted treatment programs. In the agenda packet, you were provided a packet in the agenda, and I stand for questions.
Commissioners, do we have a motion?
I move approval.
Second. Motion from Commissioner Barbara Baca, second from Chair. Any further discussion on introduction for this contract increase? All right, seeing none. All those in favor? Yes?
Yes.
Passes on a 4-0 vote. Thanks, Warden.
Thank
It was
you.
easy. All right, that's all our business for the evening. Our next meeting will start with our nuisance abatement appeal meeting at 3 p.m. on Tuesday, May 27th, right here in the Ken Sanchez Chambers. After that, at 4 p.m., we've got a Board of Finance meeting, again on the same day, Tuesday, March 27th, and ending the day at 5 p.m. for a regular administrative meeting right here in the Ken Sanchez Chambers. If there's no other business, this meeting is adjourned.